Have you ever found yourself standing in the middle of a mundane afternoon, perhaps watching the way the light hits a fading leaf, or listening to a stranger's fleeting laugh, and felt a sudden, inexplicable lump in your throat? You aren't necessarily sad, you aren't breaking down, and yet the tears arrive anyway, unbidden and unapologetic. Think back to when you were very young. Do you remember the first time someone told you to stop being so sensitive? In that moment, the world felt vast and vibrant. Every emotion was a color you hadn't learned to fear. But as the years pressed on, that vibrant world became a source of exhaustion. You learned to view your tears as a leak in the hull of a ship, something to be patched, hidden, or apologized for.
You grew tired of being the person who feels too much in a world that prides itself on feeling very little. Here's the gentle truth we often forget. Your tears are not a flaw in your character. They are a testament to your depth. We are witnessing a core paradox. The very openness that allows you to be moved by a symphony or a sunset is the exact same mechanism that leaves you vulnerable to the world's sharp edges. The sensitivity that was your greatest gift as a child has become, in the eyes of a cynical world, your most visible vulnerability. But what if those tears aren't a sign of your breaking? What if they are the only way a beautiful soul breathes in a suffocating room? To understand why some of us carry our hearts so close to the surface, we must look beneath the skin, into the very architecture of the spirit and the brain. You are not weak. You are likely what psychologists call a highly sensitive person, possessing a trait known as sensory processing sensitivity. Imagine, if you will, that most people move through life wearing a heavy protective coat. They perceive the wind, but they do not feel its chill. You, however, move through the world in silk. You do not just see an emotion, you process it with a depth that is neurologically measurable. This isn't just personality, it is biological reality.
First, let us consider the mirror neuron system. In those who cry easily, this system is often turned up to a higher frequency. When you see a flicker of pain in a friend's eye, or even a fictional character on a screen, your brain doesn't just register their distress, it simulates it. You are experiencing hyperempathy, a state where the boundaries between self and other become porous. Your tears are often not even your own. They are the world's grief passing through you, using your eyes as a gateway. Secondly, we must look at the vagus nerve, the highway of your soul's connection to your body. In people who cry easily, the autonomic nervous system is often more responsive to emotional stimuli. This is not a lack of control, it is high emotional reactivity. While others might have a high threshold before their internal cup overflows, your cup is already full of the world's nuances. A single drop of beauty or a minor note of discord is enough to cause the overflow. Finally, there's the concept of thin boundariedness. Those with thin boundaries don't just feel their own emotions deeply, they have a reduced ability to filter out the environment. You are like a finely tuned violin. The slightest touch produces a sound. Over time, this constant resonance can lead to a state of neurological fatigue. Your brain's default mode network, the part of you that reflects and introspects, is hyperactive, constantly weaving stories and finding meaning in every shadow. You aren't crying because you can't handle the world. You are crying because you are the only one truly paying attention to it. The challenge of living as a permeable soul is that you lack an off switch for the world's frequency. This leads to what we call emotional contagion. You walk into a room where an argument just ended, and though the air is silent, your chest tightens. You are absorbing the residual static left behind by others. This constant absorption leads to a specific kind of exhaustion, overstimulation. Because you are processing 10 times more data than the average person, the tone of a voice, the micro-expression on a face, the shifting shadows of a room, your window of tolerance can narrow. What others see as a meltdown over something small is actually the final drop in a bucket that has been filling all day. But there is a hidden power in this porousness.
Because you have no emotional skin, you possess the alchemist's gift. You can find beauty in the mundane that others walk right past. You are the one who notices the soul beneath the social mask. You don't just observe life, you commune with it. Your tears are the price of admission for a front row seat to the most profound experiences of the human condition. So, how do you survive in a world that feels like a constant sandpaper rub against your soul? The answer is not to grow a thicker skin. To do so would be to kill the very part of you that makes you extraordinary. You cannot toughen up a violin and expect it to still play a masterpiece. Instead, you must learn the art of sanctuary. If you are a person who feels everything, you must be a person who protects your environment fiercely. You require more silence than others. You require more downtime to process the day's emotional harvest. Think of your sensitivity as a high-definition camera. It captures more light, more detail, and more truth, but it also burns through its battery faster. Do not apologize for needing to recharge. As we close this reflection, look at your tears differently. They are not a sign of your defeat. They are a sign of your integrity. In a world that is increasingly numbing itself to the pain of others, your ability to feel, to truly, deeply, uncontrollably feel, is a radical act of humanity. You are the world's heartbeat, reminding us all that we are still alive.
The next time the lump forms in your throat, don't swallow it down. Let it breathe. You aren't breaking, you are simply overflowing, and the world needs more of what you have to give. There is a profound, invisible exhaustion that comes with being a person who cries easily. It is the weight of carrying a heart that has no skin. While others can simply observe the tragedies of the world or the tensions in a room, you must absorb them. The emotional cost is a relentless, quiet tax on your energy. It is the cost of the open gate. Because you cannot filter the world, you are often left feeling like an intruder in your own mind, overwhelmed by waves of sentiment that feel too large for the smallness of daily life. This is the invisible grief, the mourning of a peace you can never quite reach, because the world is always too loud and too much. As Carl Jung once observed, there is no coming to consciousness without pain.
For the permeable soul, consciousness is a constant state of being under the skin of reality. You live in a state of perpetual vulnerability, and because society equates vulnerability with fragility, you learn to fear your own depth. You begin to sacrifice your authenticity for belonging. To survive a culture that prizes the thick-skinned and the stoic, you develop a core fear, not of the tears themselves, but of the judgment that follows them. You fear that your sensitivity makes you a burden, that your intensity is a defect, and that your empathy is a liability. You spend your life apologizing for the weather of your soul, trying to explain that your tears aren't a request for pity, but a biological necessity for release.
This creates a deep philosophical loneliness. You are a person who feels everything, living in a world that feels like it's built of stone. What begins as a childhood trait doesn't disappear. It simply migrates into the complex architecture of adult life. It's crucial to understand that many of your behaviors are not who you are, but rather highly refined coping strategies designed to manage the intensity of your internal world. You might recognize yourself in these 6 specific adult manifestations. First, the peacekeeper at work. In professional settings, you possess an almost psychic ability to sense tension. Because conflict feels like a physical blow, you often become the emotional janitor, the one who overperforms or smooths over disagreements just to keep the atmospheric pressure from rising. Second, the emotional sponge in romance. In your intimate relationships, you don't just love your partner, you become their moods. If they are silent, you assume the weight of their unsaid thoughts. You may find yourself stuck in avoidant, anxious loops, where your deep need for connection is constantly colliding with your fear of being too much for them. Third, the hyper-resonant parent. As a parent, you don't just empathize with your child's pain, you relive it. While this makes you incredibly nurturing, it can lead to parental burnout, as you struggle to maintain a boundary between your child's developmental struggles and your own emotional stability. Fourth, the preemptive apology. You have developed a reflex to apologize before you even speak. You say sorry for being sad, sorry for being moved, and sorry for simply having a nervous system. This is a survival mechanism, a way to disarm the judgment of others before they can mock your sensitivity. Fifth, the conflict paralysis. A raised voice or a sharp tone doesn't just annoy you, it shuts you down. Because your amygdala is so highly sensitized, you might find your mind going blank during arguments, your body choosing freeze because the emotional data is too corrupted to process in real time. Finally, the post-social hangover. After a long day of interacting with others, you feel a bone-deep fatigue. This isn't just introversion, it is the result of having spent hours unconsciously processing every micro-expression and emotional shift in the room. You need hours of solitude just to drain the emotions that aren't yours. The first step toward unlearning the shame of this trait is the act of witnessing. Instead of gaslighting yourself, telling yourself to toughen up or stop being dramatic, you must learn to look at your tears with the detachment of a scientist and the warmth of a friend. You are not a broken version of a stoic person. You are a finely tuned instrument. The goal is not to stop the tears, but to stop the war you wage against yourself when they arrive. The path to healing for those who carry the permeable soul does not begin with a quest to become thicker-skinned. To attempt to harden yourself is to commit a secondary violence against your nature. It is to take the beautiful, resonant violin of your spirit and try to turn it into a blunt hammer. Healing, in its truest sense, is not a process of fixing a perceived defect. It is an act of reclamation. It is the slow, deliberate work of moving from a state of being overwhelmed by your depth to becoming the conscious steward of it. The first and perhaps most radical step in this journey is inner child reparenting. For decades, the sensitive child within you has been hiding in a state of perpetual apology. That child was likely told, either through direct words or the cold weight of silence, that their tears were an inconvenience, a sign of instability, or a performance. Healing begins when you, as the adult, step into that internal space and offer the validation that was never granted. It involves a literal internal dialogue where you look at that overwhelmed version of yourself and say, I see why this hurts. I see how much you are carrying. You are allowed to feel this, and I will stay here until the wave passes. This is the practice of becoming your own safe harbor. You stop looking for the world to stop the rain, and instead learn how to hold your own umbrella. Closely linked to this is the profound work of shadow integration. In the pursuit of survival, many people who cry easily develop a shadow of suppressed resentment. Because you are so attuned to others, you often suppress your own needs to avoid the emotional friction of conflict. You become the kind one, the soft one, while burying the part of you that is angry, sharp, or tired of being the world's emotional filter. Healing requires you to invite this shadow to the table. It means acknowledging that your sensitivity is not just a soft, ethereal glow. It is also a fierce, discerning fire. When you integrate your shadow, your tears change. They are no longer the tears of a victim drowning in a sea of input. They become the tears of a sovereign being who is deeply moved but not destroyed. We must also discuss the practicalities of choosing softness in a world that demands iron. This is what we might call selective permeability. Imagine your soul not as an open field with no fences, but as a beautiful garden with a gate. You are the one who holds the key. Healing involves learning how to sense the emotional atmospheric pressure of a room and choosing when to engage your filters. It is the somatic practice of grounding, learning to feel the weight of your feet on the floor and the rhythm of your breath when the lump in your throat begins to form. You aren't suppressing the emotion. You are providing it with a larger container. You are telling your nervous system, we are feeling this, but we are also safe. We are the ocean, not just the wave. As
As the poet Rumi famously wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." For those who cry easily, the wound is often the very openness that feels like a weakness. But if we look closer, we see that this light, this heightened awareness and capacity for empathy, is exactly what the world is starving for. Your tears are a biological reset button for a nervous system that is doing the heavy lifting of being human in a dehumanizing age. They are a form of spiritual alchemy, turning the leaden weight of grief into the gold of connection. There is a profound philosophical weight to the act of crying. Historically, tears were seen as a gift, the gift of tears, or lacrimarum gratia.
Ancient traditions understood that to weep was to be cleansed, to be honest, and to be profoundly alive. When you cry, you are participating in a sacred, ancient rhythm of release. You are proving that the world has not yet managed to turn you into a machine. In the final analysis, the goal of this journey is not to reach a day where you no longer cry. The goal is to reach a day where, when the tears come, you no longer feel ashamed. You no longer feel less than. You realize that your sensitivity is a bridge, not a barrier. You understand that while others may walk through life seeing only the surface of things, you are the one who sees the depths, the hidden beauty, the unspoken pain, and the shimmering interconnectedness of all things. As we conclude this reflection, let this truth settle into your bones. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are a person of rare and vital depth, living in a world that has forgotten how to feel. Your tears are the evidence of your courage. They are the proof that you have kept your heart open when it would have been so much easier to close it. The goal of your life is not to be fixed into a state of stoic indifference. The goal is to become whole, and to be whole is to accept the entirety of your emotional weather, the storms, the stillness, and the rain. If this exploration has resonated with the deeper parts of you, I invite you to join our community. By subscribing and sharing your own story in the comments, you help build a space where sensitivity is recognized not as a flaw, but as a form of genius. We are all learning how to carry our light without being burned by it. Remember, the world doesn't need more people who can handle the pain. It needs more people who are brave enough to feel it. Be gentle with yourself tonight. You are exactly where you need to be.